The U.S. military is striking back after a deadly drone attack killed an American contractor and wounded 5 service members. The Pentagon says that an Iranian-made drone struck a base in northeast Syria. An official telling CNN that it was a one-way drone that intentionally crashed into its target.
President Biden responded with airstrikes against groups affiliated with Iran's Revolutionary Guard in Syria. What you're looking at is social media video that appears to show the flaming aftermath of the U.S. strikes. I think we're going to go to the Pentagon right now, where we're expecting to get a briefing on this. Let's see if we can listen in on that.
Hasaka in northeast Syria at approximately 1:38 p.m. local time. Secretary Austin, at the direction of President Biden, authorized U.S. Central Command forces to conduct precision strikes into eastern Syria against facilities used by groups affiliated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The airstrikes were conducted in response to yesterday's attack, as well as a series of recent attacks against coalition forces in Syria by groups affiliated with the IRGC. In terms of airstrike details, 2 U.S. Air Force F-15E fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Air Force's Central and based in the CENTCOM area of responsibility struck 2 IRGC-affiliated facilities at approximately 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time, or 2:40 a.m. local. The facilities were located near Deir ez-Zor in eastern Syria, and we're continuing to assess the outcome of the strikes. Initial indications are that the facilities were destroyed. In regards to any militant casualties, we're still assessing. These precision strikes were intended to protect and defend U.S. personnel, and the U.S. took proportionate and deliberate action intended to limit the risk of escalation and minimize casualties. As Secretary Austin said in his statement, no group will strike our troops with impunity. Again, Secretary Austin, along with the Department of Defense, offer our thoughts and prayers to the family and colleagues of the American contractor who was killed and with those who were wounded in the attack. Our forces deployed in Syria continue to conduct their important mission in support of the international coalition to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS. Separately, Secretary Austin and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, testified yesterday before the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense to discuss the President's fiscal year 2024 budget. Next week, both leaders are scheduled to testify before the Senate Armed Services Committee and the House Armed Services Committee on DoD's budget posture and our future year's defense program. Again, the Secretary and the Chairman look forward to working with Congress to provide our service members serving around the world with the resources that they need to accomplish DoD's mission and strengthen America's national security for the 21st century and beyond. Finally, on Wednesday, Secretary Austin unveiled a comprehensive plan aimed at improving the lives of our dedicated military force and their families. The new plan consists of 6 additional actions that address essential needs in education, child care, parental leave, and career advancement. The Department of Defense is committed to working with Congress and other stakeholders to ensure the successful implementation of these measures. The plan directs the implementation of the following: universal pre-kindergarten at DoD education activity schools, dependent care flexible spending accounts for service members, promoting awareness of new military parental leave benefits, improvements to the Exceptional Family Member Program, expanded spouse eligibility for career advancement account financial assistance, and continuing efforts for portability for professional licensees for military families. Secretary Austin and the Department of Defense are dedicated to enhancing the quality of life for our service members and their families through these new measures. The DoD will collaborate with Congress and state partners to ensure the successful implementation and ongoing support of these initiatives. The memorandum and additional information can be found on the DoD website.
Yeah, so a couple new details that we got from the Pentagon press secretary there, specifically that the fighter jets that carried out this airstrike on these Iran-backed facilities in Syria were 2 U.S. Air Force F-15E fighter aircraft, and they actually struck 2 facilities, and we were told earlier today that those facilities were where Iranian proxy groups were housing some munitions and also using as a base to gather intelligence. Now, we are also told by Ryder there that the Pentagon is still assessing the number of militant casualties that actually resulted from that airstrike. It is unclear how many people actually died there. However, a UK-based human rights monitoring group says that there were at least 8 killed as a result of that U.S. airstrike airstrike. But look, there were a lot of questions here about why that couldn't have been, that Iranian drone strike could not have been prevented, right? Because the point was made that these drones don't move very quickly, and that perhaps the base could have taken some measures to try to take it down before it crashed into that facility that was housing U.S. personnel. And the answer that we got from the Pentagon press secretary there was that they're essentially assessing what happened here. It is his understanding that the radar was all operating pretty correctly. And so the question now is, what can they do better to mitigate that potential risk in the future? And he did say that U.S. Central Command is carrying out an assessment right now about how they can better protect U.S. troops and personnel stationed there.
Only the latest in a round of attacks from these Iranian-backed groups. Some 80 drone or rocket attacks on U.S. troops in that region since the beginning of 2021. Natasha Bertrand from the Pentagon, thank you so much. Let's get some perspective now from retired Brigadier General Peter Zwack. He's a Wilson Center Global Fellow at the Kennan Institute. Sir, thank you so much for being with us. And as we noted that statistic, 78 drone or rocket attacks on U.S. troops in that area since 2021. Obviously, there Brigadier General Pat Ryder asked about the security of these facilities. Look, the focus of the United States from a security perspective obviously is on Eastern Europe, it's on the Pacific, but is enough being done to protect and fortify our assets in Syria in this fight, continuing fight against ISIS?
I believe that the forces on the ground, force protection in these type of environments, and I've seen it, is paramount. But the nature of war, the unpredictability of conflict, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect science, and sometimes missiles or drones will get through. I think that what we would note is that this is when you look at the whole picture, fairly rare, but it did happen. 78 attacks apparently over the last few years between Syria and Iraq, yes, but I've got to believe those ground commanders whose responsibility it is number one is force protection before offensive operations.
And General, we know that Iran often uses these proxy groups to carry out these attacks, which is what apparently reportedly happened here. Help us understand why they do that. Does that allow them to keep their hands clean, as it were? We heard that reporter trying to press the general there about if Iran was responsible for this American death, and he didn't quite, he just stopped short of saying that they were. What do you make of all of that?
Well, the proxy forces, when we hear of that, we think of, first of all, there is the IRGC, Revolution Guard, and they kind of are the, if you will, managing and quarterbacking. However, you've got Shia militias in there, you've got locals, and you have also, in fact, Deir ez-Zor, where we saw the attack yesterday, was site of a very, very, very tough U.S. and ally engagement with Russian proxies. There are an estimated 200, including the Wagner Group in 2018. So there is a swirl of different activities. Now, the key point with the Iranian proxies is where they really have a swath that goes through Syria's sort of Wild West South, is also risks, and it makes the Russians crazy, getting the Israelis more involved. And the Israelis have done a number of these type of strikes that we are doing now against the Syrians and the Iranians as well. It's a complete mix of groups, proxies, countries. Up in the Northeast, you've got the United States, you've got Russians, you've got Turks, you have the Syrians, and you have the Kurds, and all of that is working. And in there you have these sort of, difficult to identify allegiances of groups that shift from time to time.
Right. Yeah, a lot at play there. Retired Brigadier General Peter Zwack, thank you so much for your analysis there. We appreciate it.